the car, car. For we know how cozy the tops of the tram cars are. And the seats are so small and there's not much to pay. You sit close together and spoon all the way. Many a miss will be missed someday through riding on top of the car.
The Braunston Hotel was the Narborough Road terminus of the tramway system. A bus pulls in from Braunston Lane or even the new Foss Retail Park, picks up its passengers and sets off for the clock tower. Apart from the shelter that was built in tramway days, there's little to remind us of the time 55 years ago when tram enthusiast Stan Eads of Birmingham passed through Leicester on a business trip and was fascinated by the trolley reverser in use here at the Narborough Road terminus, which he filmed with his 16mm camera. There was a reverser at each of the Leicester termini which saved the conductor turning the trolley by hand. Narborough Road itself, although now a dual carriageway, has changed remarkably little since this tram set off for the Clock Tower and Melton Road in 1934. Filmed by Mr. Forian during the winter of 1930, tramcars pass along Hinckley Road near to the Western Park terminus, which is to the right. The south side of Hinckley Road was still allotments in those days. Trams first came to Leicester on Christmas Eve 1874, when a horse car service was established between the Clock Tower and Belgrave. It carried 16 passengers and competed with the horse bus services which had already been running for some time. The Clock Tower area had already established its now familiar layout, even when these snaps were taken nearly 100 years ago. The horse buses and trams were to provide Leicester with its public transport for the next 30 years, until the tramway system was electrified. The decorations in Gallow Tree Gate include the flags of many countries, but it's not known what occasion this was. In 1876, the Hughes Patent steam tramway engine ran trials. It was the first of its kind and built at the Hughes Foundry at Loughborough, now Brush Electrical Engineering, but was not deemed successful in Leicester. The decision to electrify and extend the tramway system at a cost of some £650,000 was made in 1901, after the council took control. Its centrepiece was the massive new junction layout around the clock tower itself, said to be one of the most complex in the country. Electric operation commenced on Wednesday the 18th of May 1904. The Civic Party were conveyed by horse car to the tramway power station on Painter Street, now the Charles Keene College, to switch on the electric power. Then riding the new electric cars the short distance to Abbey Park Road Depot to perform the actual opening ceremony. After touring the system in 3 suitably decorated tramcars, the Civic Party alighted outside London Road Station and retired to the Mayor's Parlour, and the trams were handed over to the people of Leicester to joyride free of charge for the rest of the day. The trams themselves were open toppers, built by the Dick Kerr Company of Preston, and were handsome machines for their time. To service and maintain the fleet of electric cars, a new depot and later workshops were built on Abbey Park Road, opposite the park itself. They were equipped with every modern facility to carry out major body, electrical and truck repairs. As the volume of traffic on the roads increased, the occasional mishap involving a tram was inevitable. In this incident opposite Spinney Hill Park, the horse probably escaped without injury, but the delivery van was well and truly sandwiched between the trams. The tram on the right has an enclosed top but open balconies. All of the cars were eventually rebuilt totally enclosed. In the city itself, a new road was being built to bypass the clock tower. Dubbed the $1 Million Highway, Charles Street represented the pinnacle of forward thinking in a progressive Leicester when these scenes were shot by Mr. Horace Harold with his 9.5mm camera in 1935. The tram is in Humberston Gate, passing Lee's Corner, the municipal offices in Rutland Street, and the new police headquarters built at the London Road end. Two Midland Red buses pass by. Then, speeding out of Granby Street, a tram literally bounces across the Charles Street junction and up London Road. Epic House, home of Radio Leicester, now stands on the site of the horse repository. Today, Charles Street copes remarkably well with the massive volume of 1980s traffic, leaving us to reflect that perhaps there was considerable wisdom in those decisions made nearly 60 years ago. Returning to 1935 again, an unknown 9.5mm film record shows the clock tower covered in scaffolding and girders arriving for the new Lewis's store under construction in Humberston Gate. When Lewis's opened in 1936, the public were allowed onto the roof, and Bob Sarson recorded these scenes of the trams and traffic in Humberston Gate, Charles Street and the clock tower. Lewis's rooftop restaurant was a popular venue for many years. It was the practice of tramway companies to decorate their cars for local or state occasions. Celebrating the coronation of King George V in 1911, this highly decorated open topper is passing the clock tower into Belgrave Gate. Car number 50, one of the last of the open toppers, was illuminated with more than 2,000 coloured lights in the 1920s. Cars were also decorated for the Leicester pageant in 1932. In the weeks leading up to the Silver Jubilee celebrations of King George V and Queen Mary in 1935, the whole of Leicester city centre was transformed with flags and bunting. 4 trams and at least 1 bus were lavishly decorated when Horace Harold, Frank Atfield and an unknown cameraman all filmed the scene. Market Street, Horsefair Street and the Town Hall itself were generously decorated. And Beaver Street looked as it had never looked before. In Humberston Gate, the tramway officers declared, "Long live the King." Westby's well-known shop was next door. Decorated car number 6 makes its way down Gallow Tree Gate and around the clock tower. At this time in May, George Formby was at the Opera House in Silver Street with his 1935 All-Star Roadshow. He also visited the Mayfield Road Service Station near Victoria Park, promoting the sale of new motor cars. Tons of Money, a comedy farce, was playing at the Theatre Royal, and Laurel and Hardy films were being screened at the Palace. At the Picture House on Granby Street, Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers starred in The Gay Divorcee. Morgan Squires were offering free to every customer who spent 15 shillings or more a real Shelley butter dish as a Jubilee gift. A new semi on the Fletcher estate at Gipsy Lane cost £445. The Leicester Building Society offered home loans at 4.5% interest. Sport, and the end of the football season was in sight. There was a note of gloom at Filbert Street as Leicester City were relegated to the second division. Over the Jubilee weekend, the Evening Mail reported a bizarre accident between a car and a motorcycle. The car hit a tram post, bringing down its spiked top, which pierced the roof, killing its lady driver. Monday the 6th of May 1935 was Jubilee Day itself, and both city and county children were given the day off school. Local celebrations took place on Victoria Park with a 21-gun Royal Salute, and in the evening was the lighting of a giant bonfire beacon by the Lord Mayor. The beacon was one of 2,000 countrywide, which spread the glad tidings throughout the nation. The decorated double-decker bus looks slightly odd as it turns into Newark Street in opposition to today's traffic flow. At 10:25 in the morning, the military parade left the magazine barracks, led by Colonel A. Hawkyard of the Leicestershire Yeomanry, followed by the 239th Battery of the Royal Artillery, the 4th Battalion Leicestershire Regiment, the Leicestershire Royal Defence Corps, and members of the Old Contemptibles and the British Legion. They marched up Newark Street, turning into Welford Road and Regent Road to Victoria Park, watched by some 50,000 people. At 11 o'clock, the Royal Salute of 21 guns was fired at 10-second intervals. Hardly had the last gun gone off when a large crowd broke loose souvenir hunting. At 11:40, the parade left Victoria Park and marched down London Road and Granby Street, back to the magazine. Total chaos reigned as cars, buses, trams and people were jammed solid for some time afterwards. October 1936, and at the Granby Halls was a trade exhibition of textile machinery with many local firms participating. The traffic flow at the junction outside seems strange today. A double-decker bus and a Freeman, Hardy and Willis lorry pass by and make their way up Welford Road towards Welford Place. In 1938, plans were first mooted at the Town Hall to replace the trams, but the system was in good condition and this aim was declared as long-term. Still in 1938, a smart new colour scheme was adopted when the trams appeared in all-over maroon with cream window frames. Back to Gallowtree Gate again, as a tram in the new colours, followed by one in the old, pass Woolworths. The second tram carries an advert for Symington's of Market Harbour. The camera pans round to the market approach. A ride in a motor car down Gallowtree Gate approaches a traffic jam around the tower, no doubt caused by a tram loading in High Street. A second look at the sequence, shot by an unknown cameraman, shows the traffic policeman hanging up his jacket. At Woolworths, established at that site for over 50 years, nothing cost over sixpence. Today, it's British home stores, whilst W.H. Smith's and Dixon's are on the left. Boots and Marks and Spencer on the right, as we journey down Gallowtree Gate again, just before the outbreak of war. During the Second World War, the trams took on a more important role as motor fuel was short. Cars were blacked out, and the legend Leicester was removed from the sides to confuse the enemy, should any turn up, heaven forbid. Women were taken on as conductors again, as they had been in the First War. This group are being shown how to change a point by Inspector Ted Stanion. Car number 168 was so heavily disguised in 1942, promoting city links with HMS Renown, that it hardly looked like a tram at all. And this tram, passing London Road Station, promoted the county salvage drive. After the war, things were changing on the railways too. Henry Bates filmed the platforms at London Road looking much as they always had, but the government had nationalised the railways, and instead of LMS, British Railways was appearing on the locomotives. Hillcrest, the old workhouse, is visible as the train stands under Swain Street Bridge before departing for Glasgow. On the streets above, the trams were becoming increasingly out of place amongst the post-war traffic, and plans were drawn up to replace them quickly. Wartime neglect and the poor state of the tracks was the public reasoning. True, the system was run down, but confidentially the tramcar now reflected a past era, and there was no place for the trams in a modern post-war Leicester. 6 months before final closure in 1949, a group of enthusiasts from the Southern Counties Touring Society visited Leicester and toured the system in a special car. The special car was outside the station when the group arrived and, filmed by one of their members, departed up London Road, travelling along Evington Road and East Park Road to the Trocadero terminus at Humberston. Returning to the town along Uppingham Road, the group had lunch at the central depot in Humberston Gate, then travelled to Abbey Park Road for a tour of the depot and workshops. The last day of tramway operation was on Wednesday, the 9th of November, 1949. It was an appalling day, the weather somehow reflecting the sombre occasion. Filmmaker Bernard Bates shot the changeover from trams to buses, and these scenes shot immediately prior to closure remain unique as the only known colour film footage of Leicester's trams. The Humberston terminus at the Trocadero again, with car number 38 returning to town along Uppingham Road after its conductor had punched his time card. Car number 58 was suitably decorated to be the final tram, leaving Humberston Gate at 3:20 in the afternoon for Humberston. Upon its return, it went back into the central depot to pick up the Civic Party, re-emerging for the very last time into Humberston Gate in front of the crowds who'd gathered there to see it. Mrs. Bates was sent into town to film that final departure as her husband was at work. After pausing at the clock tower, it turned into Belgrave Gate, arriving back at Abbey Park Road at 4:20. An inspector hung the final death knell onto the Humberston Gate tram shelter, and Leicester had said goodbye to its trams. Special tracks had been laid at the back of Abbey Park Road depot, and the remaining trams were quickly disposed of, though some had earlier been sold to farmers and the like for just £5 each. The last tram to be broken up at Abbey Park Road in April 1950 was car number 36, which the Southern Counties Touring Society had ridden on nearly a year before. Back in the city, a fleet of 160 new buses, purchased during the previous 3 years, replaced the trams, and the decision was taken to remove all tram tracks within half a mile of the clock tower. This was to some extent obligatory, as the Tramways Act of 1870 stated that in the event of abandonment, the road must be left in the condition that it was found prior to the construction of the tramway. Under the circumstances, the Transport Department contributed £100,000 to the Highways Department to help meet the costs of remaking the roads. Traffic chaos was extensive as the magnitude of the work became apparent. On London Road outside the station, the road was finally being remade. The flexo-mastic road surface was laid by hand, and these workers were reckoned to be amongst the highest paid in the country at the time. When the job was complete, virtually all trace of the tramway era had gone. Some 10 years later, in 1960, car number 76 was found in a village near Snaith in Yorkshire, where it had been used as a cricket pavilion. It was purchased by members of the then newly formed Tramway Museum Society, and now, beautifully restored, is on permanent display at the National Tramway Museum in Cryche, Derbyshire. Perhaps the last tram of all, though, is car number 31, one of several acquired by a Leicestershire farmer in 1947. It was one of the original cars supplied in 1904 and has stood here on the farm for almost as many years as it ran in service, testament to the quality of its construction. Let's hope that one day it can be returned to the city it so loyally served.
You jump on the car when the journey begins and make for the first vacancy. For all other people you don't care to pin as long as your comfort's complete. And when the conductor comes up for his fare, he punches your ticket, then goes, and tips you a wink as he pops down the stairs, like an overgrown Cupid in blow. As we go for a ride on the car, for we know how cozy the tops of the tram cars are, and the seats are so small and there's not much to say. You sit close together and spoon all the way. Many a miss will be missed someday through riding on top of the top.